I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
Level with us. Happy New Year and welcome to Level With Us, the show where we have a cozy video game discussion every week. And just like last year, we're going to be going over our top 5 games of the year for 2022. And keep in mind, not all of these have to be games that came out this year, but they need to be games we experienced for the first time. Very excited to hear your top 5, Marcus. But before we do, let's have some honorable mentions.
Sure. I'm sure everyone is waiting with bated breath to know what Marcus Richardson thought was best. Which, actually, before our honorable mentions, I was curious, what was your criteria for games of the year? Like, did they have to be objectively good games or games that you enjoyed the most, personally?
Games I enjoyed the most, and I think you'll find, I think my number 1 might surprise you in that regard.
Oh, a teaser. Ooh. Well, yeah, I can start with an honorable mention. My honorable mention is Marvel Snap, the app.
Yep. Yep.
Just for, one, the amount of time I've spent on it, and 2, I think it does a couple things well, considering what it is. And for people who don't know, Marvel Snap is kind of a take on the trading card game app genre of games like Hearthstone. And the individual matches are very short, and your decks are very small, and it feels like it distilled a lot of aspects of deck builders into just a very compact setting, and it has just enough strategy to feel meaningful, even though so much of the battle is randomized. So I think that Marvel Snap is a good time if you like app games, and like all app games like this, it's monetized through kind of loot boxes and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, you get cards organically and you get them randomly. So I thought it was a good time.
I think Rocket League Sideswipe was like my honorable mention last year. So
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's an honorable mention for me as well. It wins the game I've played way too much and probably need to delete it award.
Nice.
So a couple others for me. Kirby Forgotten Land, and some of these might be on your list, Marcus. I don't know. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was very fun in co-op. I'm really glad I played that entire game purely in co-op with my wife. That was great. Inscription was awesome. I loved the card mechanics and the spooky surprises. Splatoon 3, I love Splatoon. I don't think the third one is necessarily better than the other two. I think they're all just good. And for the 1 month that I played it, I was really, really into it, and then kind of faded out just because they weren't really adding any new maps. So I think they're going to update it throughout the year, so maybe I will get back into it, but that's a fun one. And then finally, and I don't know, this might be a surprise, it's not on my top 5, Elden Ring. That game was very fun and also very frustrating. There's a lot of things I don't like about FromSoft games, but I'm really glad I got this one because it got me to buy a PS5, which I think has some value to that, right?
Sure.
All the fear of missing out, I guess, with all my friends playing it. And I did really enjoy the opening hours of the game. I think especially that first area, just exploring Limgrave, so fun. It was just great to have a nice big world to explore and kind of get a handle on it. I'm still stuck in it. I haven't beaten it yet. I don't know if I ever will, but honorable mention for me.
Yeah. I'm realizing you played more games this year, so you have a wider selection of games to pick from. Because I went on a study abroad, you continued recording the podcast, so I feel like you've got more options to pick.
Well, in large part, it was because of all the review codes we got. So we played a lot of indies this year, more than any other year for sure. Also, 2022 was just chock full of games. Like every single month, there was tons and tons and tons. So it's kind of hard to distill a list, but we'll do our best, right?
But also, you got a Steam Deck and a PS5 and an Xbox, so you experienced more games this year, I think, than or at least a wider spread of games than I think ever before.
For sure. We'll have to see how that lines up as far as our lists go. So let's begin with number 5, shall we? I'll go first. God of War Ragnarok. Last year, God of War 2018 got in my top 5. I think it was maybe fourth or third. This year, I played it. I played it very recently, so maybe my opinion's skewed a bit, but it's a really solid game. Great mechanics, great narrative. I wouldn't say it's leaps and bounds beyond the original. I'd say it's just about as good. And yeah, I don't know. It was fun to have a game that my wife and I were super invested in the story. So that kind of became our show to watch every evening just to see what would happen next. It was very exciting. Combat feels satisfying. A few things I'm disappointed about, but I might actually talk about that on the podcast in the future. But in general, great time. That's my number 5.
Nice. My number 5 is Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, which,
Ooh.
yeah, it's just a good puzzler. It's a good time waster where you get kind of in a loop, and I thought it was a good time. It gets a spot in my top 5 just for the amount of time that I played this. I would play it while listening to podcasts or doing other things. So I wasn't like fully invested, but it was definitely a good time.
I really like that one a lot. Great. Okay, well, how about you do our number 4 then?
Sure. My number 4 is Tunic,
Ooh.
which it might even have been higher on this list if the first couple of hours I played it, I didn't play it with a defective controller, and that definitely colored part of my experience. But Tunic, I mean, the most interesting thing it's doing is the in-game booklet and the fictional language, but also it, I think, has really cute kind of miniaturized graphics. It has really atmospheric music that really gives it a solid identity and vibe, and good gameplay. So I really enjoyed my time with Tunic.
That's a good one. Did you find the changing rooms yet?
No, I haven't played it. I'm not sure I played it at all after we recorded our podcast about it.
Oh man, I recommend it. There's entire mechanics to the game you probably don't even know about until you get to a certain point that have been there all along, and it's really, really cool when you discover them. So it's kind of, my friend was describing it this way: the game is information based, and the way you learn is through the booklet, which is really cool. It was frustrating for me because I got stuck a bunch of times, but with some guidance from him, I was able to kind of figure it out, and it started to become more and more rewarding once the world unlocked itself, so to speak, because I was starting to understand the language, not the literal text on the booklets, but like some of the game mechanics that have always been there, which is kind of interesting. I'm also playing Outer Wilds right now, and it's kind of the same thing where
Sure.
there are things that have been there the whole time, and you just need to obtain knowledge of by playing the game and reading these logs you find scattered throughout the galaxy, and that helps you progress. So looking forward to getting towards the end of that game too. But yeah, Tunic was great. Not on my list, unfortunately, but loved playing that one for sure. My number 4 is Horizon Forbidden West. Now, not every title on my list is a AAA, but this one really, really clicked for me. It's weird because last year I played the first game, Zero Dawn, and God of War, and I liked God of War way more. I thought it was just a way more solid game. But this year, like, I kind of liked Forbidden West more than I enjoyed Ragnarok. And I think the reason is that they fixed a lot of the things I didn't like about the first game. And also, it was just really fun to explore. I think I've already shared this on the podcast, but there's a part where you're in Zion's National Park, and I didn't realize it until I started recognizing some landmarks that I had been to in real life. And I've never experienced that in a video game before. I've never had that moment of magic of being like, whoa, wait a minute, I've been here, I remember this. And then, yeah, just they fleshed out the combat more. The big robot dinosaurs are still really fun to fight. The narrative's fine, kept us engaged. I wouldn't say like the acting is on par with something like Ragnarok, but it was still enough for us to really want to see the ending. And yeah, I just had a great time, grand old time on the
Nice.
PS5.
I do want to try out the Horizon games.
Yeah, they're good. If you like open world games, they are kind of de facto open world games. Lots of objectives, tons and tons of side quests, but you can decide how much you want to experience. So That's a good one. All right, we're up to our number 3. And for me, that was Neon White. You haven't played this one yet, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, I've talked about it on the podcast before. This game is basically speedrunning, but making it the premise of a video game. And it works really well. And I don't like speedrunning. I think speedrunning is not dumb, but just aggravating. Like, it takes out all the fun of video games for me. But in this case, when you make it the premise, it becomes really addicting. The levels are really short. It always teases you with how much time you need to shave off to get the next highest rank. And I liked the visual style. I kind of liked the story. I know most people didn't. I thought it was fun. Yeah, it was a great time. It was a blast. Good indie for this year.
Nice. My number 3 is Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ultra Deluxe. What does that mean? I feel like this makes my top 5 just because, for one thing, I really enjoyed the Stanley Parable, but also it is just so hilarious to have a game called Ultra Deluxe, and the whole thing, or at least all of the new content, is a satire on what does it even mean to have new content in a game.
Right.
They're like, hey, look, here's a circle that you can jump 5 times in. That was technically new content. How do you feel about that? And I just had, as you say, a grand old time with this game. I feel like it even more kind of finds itself, I think, in this game, in Ultra Deluxe, just because since it has more content, it has more to say and has more space to say it. And I think it's very funny and also sometimes existential and terrifying, which just makes it super unique.
Right. If you like fourth wall breaking humor, which I absolutely do, that's a must play for anyone, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your number 2?
My number 2 was Elden Ring.
Wow.
I made it all the way to my number 2. I've gone a long way since mislabeling the Pope Turtle as Pope Turtle to putting it number 2 on my yearly list. I also was very frustrated by this game. I also did not finish, probably didn't even get anywhere near close to finishing, but it earns its spot for, again, the amount of time I spent with it, and also being my introduction to a whole new world of video game that I was a stranger to. So, yeah, you already mentioned a little bit about it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. It felt good to get better at it. I just, at a certain point, could not get any better.
I remember the first few times you coming back to me and saying, I don't like this game. What clicked for you? When did the game start to become fun for you personally? Because I think everyone kind of goes through that when they try out a FromSoft game for the first time.
Good question. I think it's when I realized that I could invite strangers to face bosses with me. And I started doing that, and it meant I could get through choke points by inviting people who were OP to like deal with the bosses. And then I could do what I enjoyed most, which was exploring and, you know, putting together a cool build with an interesting weapon and interesting spells. So once I could get past like the really tough moments with some help, I think that kind of opened it up for me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, my number 2 is very different. It's a game called Chicory. Chicory is an indie title. I don't know if I got to talk about it on the show. I don't think I did. That's another game that I played completely in co-op with my wife, and it's delightful. It's a game where you just color the world with a magic paintbrush. It's basically a giant coloring book, and there are certain puzzles that require you to color or uncolor certain things that you'd be surprised how much they can take coloring and make it a mechanic of the game. It's also just a very cute, cozy game, which I love. There's actually some moments of combat, which I didn't expect, but short of like a more robust combat system, it's basically a Zelda title, like an original 2D Zelda title where the world slowly unlocks and you meet new characters and go to different towns. And in co-op, it was very fun. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. All right, and then our number 1 titles. Who should go first on this one? Should it be me?
No.
Okay,
I'll go
for
first
it.
because I'm curious if we have zero overlap this year between our top five.
Have we not had any
Unless
so far?
not yet.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me make a guess then, and then you have to guess what mine is. I bet your number one. I'm gonna go on a limb here. I think it was Lost in Play. I think you really enjoyed a point and click. I'm gonna say Lost in Play. Final answer.
Yep, that's correct. My number one is Lost in Play.
Really?
Yep.
Oh man, awesome.
Did you think I was joking?
No, because I remember there were some things you didn't like about it, but
Here's the thing,
I'm like,
Jared,
I know what games you like, and I feel like that one kind of fits pretty neatly into what you enjoy.
Well, the thing is, on this podcast, I don't think I necessarily talk about the games in a way that would really let people know what my top game of the year is, because, usually I need a little bit of time to kind of look back and be like, oh, that was a solid experience. And this one gets Marcus' top list because I played it with a friend, and that made it very fun and a lot more funny. It also just was like a really short, cute point and click with some really interesting puzzles. I loved the interstitial puzzles in between the point and click levels. I thought that they were, some of them were like really, really smartly built. So as a puzzle enthusiast, I enjoy that. It has really nice, pleasant animation. It was a good time.
I was surprised how much I enjoyed that one as well. And I agree with you. There were puzzles I don't think I've ever seen before in a video game, which is very surprising considering how many games we've played with puzzles,
Right.
How many times has a new blockbuster title come out and it has sliding block puzzles that we've seen countless times over?
Sure.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad Lost in Play was your game of the year.
It sounds like it isn't yours.
It is not. It's not my.
Okay,
it's not my number
we have
one.
no overlap. That's so cool.
What do you think my number one is, Marcus?
You said it might surprise me. I don't know if I even want to embarrass myself by wagering a guess. Your top one is Mario vs. Rabbids, Sparks of Hope.
My number one this year is actually Trombone Champ
All right.
on the Steam Deck. Yeah,
Sure.
it's kind of goofy, but like I ended up playing it more than any other game on. I'm just kidding. It is Mario and Rabbids. Congratulations.
All right. You silly boy.
Yes, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Very fun tactical RPG game. From start to finish, it was very solid. It was very satisfying to explore the environments. It was very fun to use the different characters and their abilities. It was accessible. Like, it never felt too hard to me. Yeah, worth checking out. It's on sale already, as most Ubisoft games are. So if anyone's listening and you have any interest, go check it out for sure. I loved it. It was very fun. And great music.
For sure.
Cool.
Nice. Well, we did it. We successfully went over our top 5 and had no overlap. That
Yeah,
is
you could call
impressive.
this a top 10 list, and I
Top
wouldn't
10.
feel bad. I wouldn't feel bad slotting in like yours in between each of mine,
Yeah,
because those are all great picks.
Mine are 10 through 6, and then yours are 5
No.
through 1.
No, I think I'd go I don't know. I don't know where I'd put them. But like Elden Ring, pretty high up on the list, I'm fine with. Like Lost in Play was excellent.
Yeah, I think that 4 of your 5 I did not play. So
Oh my gosh, you're right. 4 through 2, you haven't touched any of those. Which is crazy, because we played so many games at the same time for the podcast.
yeah, but not those ones.
Huh. What's your most anticipated games of next year, besides the most obvious one?
Oh, well, yeah, the most obvious one, of course, would be French Horn Champ, the highly anticipated
pumped.
sequel.
So pumped.
No, Breath of the Wild. That's kind of it. I don't
Tears
know.
of the Kingdom,
Yes, that one. Sorry.
which was our most anticipated game last year for 2022.
Oopsie. Oopsie doopsies.
But at least we have a title. That's what I complained about last year. Now we have a title. We don't know anything about it, but come this May, that'll be very exciting. I'm also excited for Mina the Hollower.
Of course,
don't
of course.
think it's going to come out this year because Yacht Club, they like to delay their games as long as necessary, sometimes for years. if it means making sure it's a polished product. So even though they said December 2023, I could totally see them pushing it. But that game, I think, looks phenomenal. Super excited for that. I'm also excited for Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
I think that one will be really fun to try out on the PS5 and see if it can live up to the dream.
Yeah, me too.
We have lots of plans for next year. We have a lot of games we're going to cover. Some of the ones that'll be earlier on are an indie game called Wavetale. We'll also be inviting Ray to come back on the show and talk about Sonic Frontiers with us. And there'll be plenty more indies to discuss on the show. And, maybe I'll get to cover some of the games I didn't talk about, like God of War Ragnarok and maybe some other titles as well. But very excited for another year of Level with us. Marcus, thanks for leveling with me.
Thank you, Jared, for leveling with me.
You know what? I also have a New Year's gaming resolution I wanted to share with you.
Oh, yeah?
I want to finally tackle my backlog, if I can, because there's so many games that came out this year. I'm hoping it'll be a little slower next year and that I can finally hit every game that I've put on the shelf that I've bought and never touched. We'll see how I do. Maybe I'll do a little mini series on the show about me working my way through my backlog. We'll see.
Nice. My gaming resolution is to make a game, whether that is a board game or some sort of prototype for a video game. I want to put my money where my mouth is. We keep on talking about me being creative. I want to make something this year that I can
Well, I'm
share.
looking forward to helping you play test it. That sounds like a great goal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we'll take another little break at the start of the year to kind of catch up on some of these games, but we'll be back soon. We also have a little bonus episode planned, so look forward to that. Until then, I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
And we'll level with you next time.